Truth is, I thought it mattered. I thought that
money
mattered. But does it bollocks? Not compared to how people matter.
Welcome, mention another fine folks, to the Someday Dispatch of the Black Letter, where we contemplate thoughts worth thinking as we wind our way through the topsy-turvy upside-down world to greener pastures on the other side to become healthier, wealthy, and wise. At least that's the goal, trying to build our best lives in difficult circumstances. Going to take a look here at the economy, stock market, a little bit of cryptocurrencies as well, and of course our trusty sidekick, the online oracle, 8-ball economist, is here to answer today's most pressing question. But first, Vancouver home sales spike as record low mortgage rates, limited supply drive competition. Vancouver's housing market spiked in July with sales and prices climbing as record low mortgage rates and limited supply whipped up competition after a brief slowdown from the coronavirus pandemic. Last month, 3,128 homes sold in the Vancouver region, a 22% jump over the previous year. That's a lot of people with a lot of money. Mind you, it is a city, Vancouver here in Canada, is a city of about, 2-3 million. The home price index, an industry calculation of a typical home price, was over $1 million in July, a 4.5% increase over the same month last year. I think this is going to have to change at some point. I think by the fall we'll see that the home prices are going to start seeing some downward pressure. I'm certain there's only so many people who have jobs, and only so many people, even fewer of those, have good jobs, can afford a house that's over $1 million. And again, this is just the typical home price. And, Vancouver, like most major cities, has low-income areas and high-income areas. So for the high-income areas, you're probably looking at 2 or 3 times that at a minimum just to get into the neighborhood. I don't know who can afford those kind of prices. Certainly not me and most of the people I know. Anyway, interesting to see that there's still little pockets of this recovery, if you will, or I guess pent-up demand, but we'll see how that continues. I heard earlier that the job numbers came in a little bit lower than expected, I guess. We'll take a look at that. I still imagine they'll be above 1 million, but we'll see. The Dow is up 300 points. Here's why the stock market is looking past a dismal jobs data. So it's an interesting article, has some points that they make that I think are fair. The news was decidedly mixed, and they're talking about the ADP jobs report was a huge disappointment. The 167,000 private payroll jobs created, missing estimates by more than 1 million jobs. Though, of course, 2 million were added in to June's tally. Still, that doesn't bode well for Friday's official payrolls report. With respect to the BLS report on Friday, the June upward revision from ADP just put it more in line with what the BLS already said, writes Obliquely Advisor Group's Peter Bookvar. If the BLS number on Friday was to match up with what ADP has said since March, the private sector ad would be about 1 million versus the current estimate of 1.5 million. The ICM Services Index came in at 58.1 in July, easily topping forecasts for 55. It was a good number, falling just short of February's 58.5, but even here the news is mixed. The employment component fell to 42.1, so the question is, shouldn't we be seeing this edge closer to 50, if not breaking above it, rather than going lower, asked Jefferies economist Thomas Simmons. Something does not feel right here. One way you have strong readings of the service ISM and weak employment is stimulus, writes Dennis de Boucherer. So that's interesting. That would explain perhaps why the employment component, or I should say the services index, came in so much higher, because the employment is still abysmal, but with those stimulus checks, of course, people were spending them, most of the folks were spending them on services, groceries, gas, I'm sure, maybe restaurants, takeout, those kinds of things. I thought this was a bit funny. The Dow also got a boost from Boeing, whose stock has risen 5.5% for no good reason. I like that. Here's an honesty a bit that you don't see. It's quite refreshing. You don't see this often in the main media, other than that aforementioned vaccine news, and you'll see this. So I'm going to bet that today is a green day because job losses are lower than expected, and it's still going to be a high number. It's going to be in the hundreds of thousands, I'm certain, if not over 1 million. I think probably over 1 million. And then if stocks have a red day, then of course somebody will come out, the Fed or the Powell or vaccine news, of course. We're all being played very carefully, like a expensive violin, I guess. Interesting to see. We'll continue watching how things are. Young investors have flooded into Bitcoin during the pandemic, while the older generation can't get enough of gold, a team of JP Morgan analysts said. Retail investors are split down the middle by generation over their favorite alternative assets. The two cohorts show divergence in their preference for alternative currencies. Gold hit a record high this week as it shot past $2,000 an ounce. Last week, Bitcoin hit a year high, crossing the $11,000 level as the US dollar weakens. Both gold and Bitcoin exchange-traded funds have experienced strong inflows in the past 5 months. Millennials also have a particular fancy for stocks, especially ones in technology, but the older investors are selling equities. Younger cohorts of US retail investors show little interest in bond funds, they said, adding that they also avoid equity funds, preferring to invest in equities directly by buying individual stocks, especially tech stocks. We've seen that, the Robin Hood crowd, right? Big into Tesla, into the airlines, Boeing probably too, Kodak, I think, they've taken a run at. The older cohorts continue to deploy their excess liquidity into bond funds, the buying of which remained strong during both June and July. So again, we're looking at bifurcation here. This seems to be the buzzword of maybe the year. Everything's bifurcated. The stock market is bifurcated from the underlying economy, and it just really means that it's been detached from it. Everything's detached. Millennials are detached from how their seniors are investing, and the stocks that are going up primarily are those in the tech sector. The other ones are mostly flattish, generally as a rule. So I thought that was interesting. Gold and Bitcoin, I think, are starting to be seen as sort of safe haven stores of value, if you will. So Bitcoin as sort of digital gold. Square earnings crush estimates as Bitcoin business drives revenue beat. So I think this is going to start piquing the interest of a lot of other companies in the financial space. Square earnings for the June quarter blew past analyst estimates as the Cash App business generated a Bitcoin-driven revenue beat amid the coronavirus lockdown. And without this Bitcoin-driven revenue beat, they wouldn't have done as well. Square earnings came in at 18 cents per share on an adjusted basis. A year earlier, Square earned 21 cents a share, so it's still down, 10-15% year on year. So things are obviously not where they should be. We're certainly far from the recovery that everybody hoped for. The digital payment processor said net revenue jumped 64% to 1.92 billion. Excluding Bitcoin revenue, total net revenue was 1.05 billion, flat year over year, the company said. So it's this Bitcoin, this extra almost $900 billion. Analysts had projected a 5-cent loss, which they didn't. Square said gross payment volume, or GPV, from merchant customers fell 15% to 22.8 billion. Analysts had expected GPV to fall 20% because of Square's exposure to restaurants and small businesses. Growth for the consumer Square Cash App was a bright spot. The Square Cash App, a peer-to-peer money transfer service, competes with PayPal Holdings, Venmo, Zelle, and others. Amid the coronavirus emergency, Cash App emerged as a digital alternative to traditional banks. The app enables users to buy and sell digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Square said in quarter two, the Cash App generated 875 million of Bitcoin revenue and 17 million of Bitcoin gross profit, up 600% and 711% respectively year over year. What I'm starting to notice, folks, is that Bitcoin is starting to gain major inroads, and other cryptocurrencies as well. But of course, this article is about Bitcoin, starting to gain major inroads into the financial markets and into payment processes. PayPal, we know, is currently in the midst of making Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency payments available on its platform. Square is already doing that, and it's just going to be more and more prevalent, especially with these huge numbers. I mean, look at this, 17 million of Bitcoin gross profit in a quarter, when Bitcoin is hardly being used by the average Joe, right? So this is very, very bullish in my opinion for the case for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies generally. U.S. hiring slowed dramatically in July as coronavirus cases surged, ADP report says. Firms added just 167,000 jobs last month, a fraction of what was expected, payroll company finds. These are sort of Canadian numbers. We would expect them to be about 10 times as big, obviously, in the United States, being a country of about 10 times the population. U.S. businesses appeared to slow their hiring dramatically in July, adding only 167,000 workers to their private payrolls, a steep drop from analysts' expectations. The numbers reported Wednesday by ADP mark a significant departure from the more than 1 million jobs that some economists had predicted. We have seen the slowdown impact businesses across all sizes and sectors, says Captain Obvious. Economists cautioned the new hiring data may offer an incomplete picture of the nation's labor market. Here we go again with the economists, the analysts, pretending that everything is just fine and that we just got to look on the bright side of life, which makes me think of Monty Python. ADP on Wednesday also revised its numbers from June, finding employers added 4.3 million new jobs compared with the roughly 2.3 million the firm initially estimated. I'll be honest with you, nowadays these numbers are just questionable across the board. It's hard to tell where the truth really lies. I mean, how can you be that far apart you practically got half the numbers correct the previous month. So you can't believe anything these folks, these analysts, these particular companies releasing data. It's not reliable in my opinion. It's very hard to find where the truth lies. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis sounded the same alarms, pointing to new data showing the recent recovery in employment has halted. The Dow news arrived as Democrats and Republicans in Congress continue to battle over the size and scope of the next coronavirus relief package. So there you have it. Hirings have slowed, but on the bright side, I guess, we'll have a look in a minute. New jobless claims is slowing as well. So that's great news. The market's going to be off to the races. All-time highs, getting higher and higher by the day. Okay, here we are, folks. A couple of interesting headlines here on CNBC. Trump to sign executive order requiring U.S. to buy essential drugs from American companies. I think this is a long time coming. We need to have some of these industries back in our own countries, if only for national security reasons and really for the health of the public. Can't rely on China to be the pharmacist to the whole world, really. And here we go. U.S. weekly jobless claims total 1.186 million, lowest level of the coronavirus pandemic. Stocks are flat as investors wait on stimulus bills. So really, this is quite astonishing. We've had, I'm losing count now, is this 20 weeks of more than 1 million people claiming, filing jobless claims? It's just astonishing to me. Most of the markets, I guess, are flat, but we'll go to our trusty source. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we have live market summary. And yeah, across the board, they're just about, down slightly. Really, this is flat-ish. So we'll see how it continues the rest of the day. There'll be good news probably if this continues to remain in the red. This morning, somebody will come out this afternoon with good news, maybe from the Fed Open Market Committee, or vaccine news is going to come through, or maybe the stimulus payments are going to be rectified, and the Congress Theater is going to shut down, actually do some work. We'll see. It's very interesting. Markets are still a little red. I think the markets are feeling tired, frankly. I mean, I would. They're at nosebleed levels, just outrageously overpriced. As you know, I've been banging this drum for a while. Let's take a look at gold. Okay, so you can tell the story that gold well, you can understand the story, I should say, that gold is telling. Gold is up again, looking quite a steep up year to date, up 35%. It's phenomenal. And of course, gold is suggesting that inflation is on the way and that folks are uncomfortable with the general market outlook in the economy and this V-shaped recovery that's coming. So stock market lies to you, the bond and gold market, in my opinion, tell the truth. That's the way I'm reading it anyway. Let's see what if silver agrees. Good Lord, folks, look at this. Silver is up almost 60% for the year to date. It's just a phenomenal rise. As you can see, over the last couple of days, it was taking a bit of a breath and then shooting up like a rocket. I think this might be the bull run for silver and gold. We'll see what happens. Let's take a look at the dollar index and see how it's doing against the other currencies. Okay, so year to date, you can see the dollar index is down. All this printing of money is starting to devalue the dollar. And as a reserve currency, that is a little worrying. So I think we might eventually, this great reset that everyone's talking about might be coming sooner than we think. Perhaps by the middle of this decade. No longer will the US dollar be the reserve currency. Perhaps by the end of the decade, I'm not sure. But I think the sun is setting on the American currency as being the reserve currency. But we'll see. Let's see if Bitcoin has been doing over the past year. Okay, so Bitcoin is still at year-to-date highs, but not moving upwards with the precious metals. So that's interesting. Interesting to see how, being a nascent industry, how Bitcoin will eventually start to behave as more and more people get on board and becomes a much bigger market. At the moment, I think the Bitcoin market is only maybe a quarter of a trillion dollars, about 200 billion, maybe 250. We'll have a look. So, of course, once it gets into the trillion or so, then we'll hopefully see it start to settle down, the volatility. It'll be interesting to see how it plays. Will it play like gold and silver, or will it play more like a stock? It'll be interesting to watch. Anyway, onto the coin markets. Let's see where they're at. Okay, so here we have the market cap, 365 billion, up 1.5%. And the coins just keep increasing, 7,885 coins. That's a ton. Here's the Bitcoin market cap. Okay, so just over 200 billion. Bitcoin's up again over past 24 hours. Ethereum as well. XRP, interestingly, taking a pause to refresh itself. Bitcoin Cash 1.3. Chainlink is doing well, has been for a while. Crypto.com coin as well. Stellar down a bit. Monero, privacy coin, up 4.6%, good news. And here's some big ones. Zcash and Dash are up quite substantially. Interesting. Okay, there you have it, folks. Now let's take a look at our trusty sidekick and ask it the most pressing question of today. Okay, so folks, you remember that we had a look over here at CNBC, and we saw that the weekly jobless claims were still over 1 million, actually coming in lower than they had the lowest level so far in the pandemic. Came in at 1.186 million, so I thought this would make a great question for the online oracle. So my question for the online oracle, the 8-ball economist, is will weekly jobless claims exceed 1 million every week this month? So in other words, will we see jobless claims of 1 million or more each week for the month of August? And I believe we will. Let's see if the 8-ball agrees. Outlook not so good, so I'm not quite sure how to interpret that. I would say that the 8-ball economist doesn't think that we will exceed 1 million every week this month. So let's keep an eye on that, folks, over the rest of these coming weeks of August and see how things happen. I believe we'll see 1 million or more jobless claims every week in August and perhaps into September, perhaps maybe for the rest of the year, frankly. I mean, as things start to continue, well, as things continue to be difficult, I imagine we'll see jobless claims continue to be high and perhaps throughout the rest of the year because companies will start to continue to struggle. I think after the stimulus package, I'm not sure there's going to be a big appetite for much more. We'll see. I could be wrong about that. And of course, then I'll start focusing on the election. So interesting to see where we're at. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that, folks. Just some things to try and keep us aware of what's really going on. How to protect yourself. I think paying down debt, putting away some savings for the rainy days to come and the opportunities that's still to come. I think we'll eventually get an opportunity to get into the stock market at bargain basement prices, but that could take another 6 months to a year. Who knows? I mean, the market just continues to exceed expectations, mine certainly for months now. But there you have it, folks. I'm investing in cryptocurrencies at the moment. None of this is financial advice, just my thoughts about what I'm doing and where things are at generally. So I'm just investing in cryptocurrencies. Silver's running away from me, so I'll just be happy with what I've been able to buy historically. It's not a lot, but it's something that makes me feel comfortable and a little bit more secure than if I just had my savings in the stock market, because the stock market is feeling wobbly to me. Anyway, take care of yourself. Please be kind out there. Stay healthy. And remember, dum spiro, spero.